السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا وإمامنا وحبيبنا أبي القاسم محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I praise Allah Almighty, and I send prayers and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his noble family, righteous companions, and all those that follow them with right guidance until the day of judgment, inshallah. Glory be to you, O Allah. No knowledge have we except that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are the all-knowing, the all-wise. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts to the Qur'an, to guide us, to increase us in faith and in knowledge, and in implementation of that knowledge. First of all, I extend my heartfelt appreciation to the Quranic Youth Club for inviting me to this seminar. And inshallah, we will be talking about the important topic of science in the Quran, and how we understand the topic of science and the topic of the Quran. Do they go hand in hand? Are they contradictory? And how do we go about making sense of two concepts that seem to be opposite concepts, at least in the way that it has been presented and portrayed in the 20th and 21st century? Dear brothers and sisters, firstly the title. Let me first explain the title, because I think that might need a little bit of explanation. Science in the Quran is clear, but what is inimitability and all of this, continuity? Okay, inimitability is the best translation, I believe, for the word i'jaz. When we're talking about i'jaz al-Quran, this is probably the best translation. Okay? Technically, i'jaz in Arabic means that it is something so challenging that you are not able to produce like it. You're not able to imitate it. Okay? And this is why it's called inimitable. You cannot imitate it. You cannot imitate the Quran. You cannot reproduce it. Right? So that's why this word is used a lot of time for i'jaz. But keep in mind that i'jaz is many different types. Okay? We today are speaking specifically about scientific inimitability. Okay? So not, otherwise if we're going to talk about i'jaz, we need several lessons. We're just talking about i'jaz al-ilmi, scientific inimitability. Okay? And continuity, I think that's self-explanatory. The fact that this inimitability is continuous. It's not something that only exists now. It's a continuous process, as we will see inshallah. Next slide. Okay, so just one by one, sister, not all. When the animation is there, just one by one. Yeah, jazakallah. You're going to ruin my surprises. Otherwise. Okay, so religion and science. Are they dichotomous? For many people on the earth today, religion and science don't mix. They're like oil and water. Talk to me about religion, fine. Talk to me about science, fine. Don't mix them. But the reason it is that way is because the concept of the dichotomy between religion and science is something that has been inherited from the Christian history of religion and science. And you can say, the harmonious relationship between religion and science in Islam has not yet been fully presented and understood and absorbed by the world today. So still, for most people, religion and science don't go together. Okay? And they are contradictory. They're not conciliatory. Even though in Islam we see that it is exactly the opposite. In fact, they complement each other so beautifully that it's almost like one strengthens the other. When you see the science in the Qur'an and in the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it only boosts a Muslim's faith. And religion itself, of course, you can say religion doesn't need science, but it's part of the miracle of the Qur'an. Part of the miracle of the wahi, the revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent. It's part of the truth that exists in the world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about. The Qur'an is a book of life. It's a book of truths. And one of the amazing truths that we have discovered, especially in the past century and in the 21st century, is science. The extremely rapid development of science and scientific discovery. So when you see that the Qur'an actually touches on some of the scientific discoveries, it's amazing, right? And it is miraculous. And this is part of the i'jaz, as we will see. Next. So, I already kind of discussed, I'm going ahead of my presentation. These are some of the reasons for that perceived dichotomy, okay? Now, what happened historically in Christianity? Well, they found that verses in the Bible are simply scientifically inaccurate. So either they judge the Bible to be incorrect and unauthentic, or false, right? Which is obviously problematic. Or they say, they'll try to find certain explanations, try to explain it away. Some will say, don't take the Bible literally, right? These are all metaphors. Some said, the Bible is not a book of science. So please don't try to interpret it scientifically. And that's their prerogative, okay? So they said the Bible is not a book of science. Don't mix religion and science. And this is where, it all started. This is how it came about. Next. So, Albert Einstein said, in this famous quotation, that science without religion is lame. And religion without science is blind. I find this very interesting. He's saying, essentially, at least according to my understanding of what he's trying to say, science without religion is lame. What is science is interesting. Science is advancing our lives here in this world, absolutely. But if there's nothing behind that science, it is lame. It's almost as if there's a lack of depth in science if you don't connect it to something more supreme, a higher purpose, right? Okay, science and discoveries and so on. We have these mics and we have all kinds of discoveries, nowadays, and cars and mobile phones and nanotechnology and, all this great stuff. And then what? Is there anything behind it all? This vast universe, how did it come about? We talk about the stars, we talk about the galaxies, we talk about creation. Is there some other creation? Ultimately, scientists like to see that the science that they're discovering has a higher purpose than just becoming something consumable by human beings. Okay? So science without religion is lame. And he says religion without science is blind. If he means by this that religion cannot fulfill its task of guiding people without science, I totally disagree with him, right? Religion doesn't need science per se for the guidance of people, okay? But science is part of the truth of this world that religion, if it is authentic, will describe. Does that make sense? Next. So Albert Einstein himself is deliberating over these things. Now Galileo, okay, the famous Christian scientist, of course Galileo, one of the scientific geniuses, right? So, and his story is part of the history of the dichotomy, actually the crux of the dichotomy between religion and science. When he came and he wanted to support the Copernican heliocentric theory of the universe, right? So at the time, according to the biblical scholars, and depending on biblical information, the universe was a geocentric one. In other words, the earth is the center and not the sun. Alright? So, when Galileo came and said, no, that's false, and he supports what was called the Copernican idea of a heliocentric universe where the sun is in the middle, or at least of the solar system, right? He was branded as a heretic, right? And he's essentially saying that the Bible is false. So, obviously the Bible scholars and all of the doctors of divinity, they couldn't accept this, right? And that's why they persecuted him the way that they did. At the same time, he is using some religious evidence. So he quotes Cardinal Baronius, who in 1598 said the Bible was written to show us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. So he's saying, your own cardinal is saying, the Bible is a book of guidance, it's a book of religion, it's not a book of science. It's to show us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. In other words, not how the universe works. This is not a book to tell us how the universe works. This is a book about how to go to heaven. Okay? And I gladly tell Galileo and Baronius also, the Qur'an shows us how to go to heaven and also how the heavens go. Subhanallah. As we will see, inshallah. Next. Okay, so I think I'm going to stand. That way I'll spare my neck. So the Quranic miracle. We said there are different types of Quranic miracles. Alright? You have linguistic miracles. You have, of course, the linguistic miracles, that's just talking about the supreme eloquence of the Qur'an, which technically, since it is in the Arabic language, can only truly be understood by, authentic Arabic speakers, not even present-day Arabic speakers. A lot of Arabic speakers today cannot delve into the depths of the Quranic eloquence. Okay? Even though they can realize it to a certain extent, but to go into depths, it's quite difficult, right? It was a major challenge to the Arabs of the day. Miracles of past, present, and future tidings. So the Quran spoke authentically about history, about the stories of the prophets, okay? Starting from Adam all the way down to the predecessor of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Who's the predecessor of Prophet Muhammad? Who's the predecessor prophet? Who? I can't hear.
We are.
Come on. Who's the prophet that came before Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? Isa alayhi salam. Jesus, peace be upon him. Why are you so afraid? Okay. So, talking about the past with complete authenticity, talking about the present, and also talking about the future. Okay? So this is part of the i'jaz also. It is called the i'jaz al-ghaybi. Okay? And it can also be called the i'jaz tarihi. Okay. Number 3, legislative miracles. This is al-i'jaz al-tashri'i. This is talking about some of the miracles of the tashri'. How some of the legislation of Islam is the perfect legislation for the human race. And sometimes there's some overlap between legislative miracles and scientific miracles. How? Because when some of the legislative issues in Islam, in the Qur'an, were analyzed scientifically, they realized the wisdom behind the legislation being that way. Such as the zakah. Why is the zakah 2.5%? And how does that come to bear on, the macroeconomic system? So this has been analyzed scientifically. Or such as the time period, the iddah, of the woman after divorce, right? Why is it specifically the thalathat quru, those 3 periods? Okay, that has been analyzed scientifically. Okay, only to discover that is indeed precisely the best time that it can be, and that's a long, talk. We're not going to get into that. I'm just trying to show you there is some overlap between the legislative inimitability, the i'jaz al-tashri'i, and al-i'jaz al-'ilm. Okay? And finally, what we will speak about today, the scientific miracles or the scientific inimitability. Now, what do I mean by the next statement? The importance of ostensible lexical ambiguity. Should I take each of the words first and define them? You serious? Ostensible, meaning something that is apparent, seems apparently that way. Lexical has to do with the meanings. Okay? The science of the meanings of words. Okay? Lexical ambiguity. There's a lexical ambiguity about some of the verses of the Qur'an that enable them to be scientifically inimitable. That give them that characteristic of scientific inimitability. What do I mean? In other words, the Qur'an was revealed 14 centuries ago. The verses that we are saying are scientifically amazing and are proving scientific facts that have only recently been discovered. These verses have been recited by Muslims for the last 14 centuries. So why didn't they discover that science then? Were they reading a different Qur'an? No, it's only one, right? And it is unchanged and unadulterated. So people were reading these verses and scholars were reading these verses. Why didn't they discover that scientific i'jaz 4 centuries ago, 7 centuries ago, 10 centuries ago, from the beginning of the revelation? Why only now? The reason is ostensible lexical ambiguity. There may be a verse or a phrase or a term which seems, it's not that it is ambiguous or it's not clear what is meant by it. It's ostensibly ambiguous. So that it will not become absolutely clear until the time comes where it becomes absolutely clear, when facts are unearthed that show us what was meant by that word or by that verse. At the time, it wasn't exactly clear. Or maybe it seemed to be referring to something, but actually it can also be a reference to something else. Only when the science developed did we discover that. And I'm going to give you examples, inshallah. Next. Maybe when we give examples it'll become clearer. Have you considered the vastitude of the universe? Have you ever thought of this expansive universe. How big is it? How vast? How is it measured? Next. How do you measure the distances in the universe? Billions of kilometers? You're not happy with billions of kilometers? Billions! Is that the way the universe is measured? No? How? Light years. Barakallah feekum. Next. It's measured in billions of light years. So not billions of kilometers, that's too small. Billions of light years. Okay, so what's a light year? That's a light year. Looks nice. Looks like a long bank account number or something. 94542 kilometers. 9.5 trillion kilometers. Allahu Akbar. A light year is the time it takes for light, or the distance rather, that it takes that light travels in a year. So, we're not measuring the universe in trillions of kilometers either, nor in tens or hundreds of light years, but billions of light years. So you're talking about billions of trillions of kilometers. Ya Allah. The universe, when we talk about its expanse and its vastitude, we're talking about billions of trillions of kilometers. Subhanak ya Rabb. Glory be to the one who created it and fashioned it. Next. That's why NASA recently discovered that the most distant object in the universe is a galaxy that is 13.2 billion light years away. And they say that this is close to the age of the universe itself, 13.7 or 13.8 billion light years, if that is actually accurate. But this was the most distant object recorded until now. And there were other, this was in 2012, there were other measurements made later on, and some were adjusted and so on. But until now, I don't think it has gone beyond 13.2 billion light years. That's far away enough. So they have seen something this far away. So the universe is at least this wide, 13.2 billion light years. Next. This, in 1998, Science magazine, which is the magazine of the journal of the American Association of the Advancement of Science, they ranked the number one discovery in scientific discovery in 1998 to be the fact that the universe will keep expanding. The expanding universe. So as if it's not enough that the universe is as vast as we were just describing, it's expanding. It's getting bigger. It's swelling, right? It's only getting larger. It's not getting smaller. Science is the one who declared this to be the number one discovery of 1998. Next. The accelerating universe, right? Now, so this is just, a famous diagram from the time of the Big Bang and how the universe is expanding. So, this is supposed to be the whole universe, and this is the expansion after the Big Bang that happened approximately 13.7 billion years ago. It's daunting. Sometimes we can't fathom it. Is it correct? Allahu A'lam. But this is, the scientific community is in consensus about the age of the universe being 13.7 billion years. Next. Now, to make it more complicated, the universe is not only expanding, it's an accelerating expansion. So, if this is the universe, like an egg in my hand, and it's expanding like this is constant expansion, right? But you're talking about accelerating expansion. So it's like this, right? It's only getting faster and faster. How many people took calculus? Calculus only. Derivatives, rate of change, right? Acceleration. So you have an accelerating expansion. This is what made 3 physicists win the Nobel Prize in 2011. That they discovered that the universe is not only expanding, but that it is expanding at an accelerating rate. This was truly worthy of a Nobel Prize. What's very interesting is that the way they made this discovery is purely by serendipity. So what's serendipity now? How many people know what serendipity is? SubhanAllah. How many people know or how many people don't know? It's a type of experiment? No. It means they were not trying to discover the accelerating rate of the universe's expansion. They were trying to prove that it was expanding at a decelerating rate. They were trying to prove that it is expanding, but that expansion is slowing down. So that eventually the expansion will stop and possibly it might turn back. They wanted to prove it's a decelerating expansion. So serendipity means when you discover something opposite to that which you had originally intended to discover. Right? And that's what happened to them. They were trying to prove the decelerating expansion of the universe. They discovered it is actually happening at an accelerating rate. Of course, this was something mind-boggling for them also. So now let me ask you, is the expansion of the universe intuitive? Tell me, what do you think? Does it make sense? Is it something that, immediately comes to mind? Is it intuitive? Yes or no? No? Anybody say yes? No? So what is intuitive for you? For the universe, let's say. What would you consider intuitive? Raise your voice, please. What would you consider intuitive? A static universe? Static, right? It's not expanding or, compressing. Just a universe, right? A static universe. Precisely. Precisely. And this is exactly what Einstein also believed. Next. So Albert Einstein, in 1915, thought the same way you're thinking now. The universe must be static, not expanding. Okay? Because you might have people come and say, well, an expanding universe is intuitive, it only makes sense. No, it's not intuitive at all. And if it was intuitive, I think the first one who would have accepted it is Albert Einstein himself. Especially when the equations, his seminal general relativity equations, proved an expanding or a contracting universe. The equations that he was dealing with in 1915 on the general theory of relativity proved an expanding or a contracting universe. So Einstein considered that rubbish. What expanding universe? That doesn't make any sense. So what did he do? He added a fudge constant into the equation to change the reality of an expanding universe. And he called it the cosmological constant lambda. Okay? Why? Because if there's an expanding universe, he concocted this constant, lambda, and he gave it a parameter, or a value, such that this will be the force that will stop the expansion of the universe. He called it anti-gravity. Okay? This anti-gravity constant will stop, an ostensible expansion of the universe and keep it precisely constant and static, which is what he wanted. So if anyone would have thought it was intuitive, it would have been Einstein. He went so far as to oppose his own equations in order not to allow for an outlandish expanding universe. Okay, so he introduced the lambda. Later on, when he met Hubble, the American scientist, who proved that the universe is actually expanding, not the accelerating expanding that we talked about before, just expansion, okay? Through the redshift, which he noticed, okay? He theorized that the universe is expanding. And Einstein got convinced of that. And upon that, he went back, he scratched lambda, he scrapped the concept of anti-gravity completely, and he called it his biggest scientific blunder. But little did he know that he was on the verge of one of the most important cosmological discoveries of the 20th century. If only he had stuck with his constant a little bit further, alright? And maybe even stuck with the concept of anti-gravity. Because when you look at the expanding universe, the question is, what is making it fly apart in this way, and in an accelerating way also? So this is where, the buzzwords you're hearing nowadays, this is where dark matter and dark energy comes in. And, the worldwide search for the Higgs boson and so on. This is what many scientists postulate is a dark, hidden energy in the universe that you cannot see, which is making the universe fly apart in this way. Because there's no other way to understand this accelerating expansion, okay, that is going against the gravity of the matter in the universe. There's a gravity that pulls things together, so this is what we are calling anti-gravity, which ultimately Einstein scrapped, okay? But this is what everyone is talking about now. An expanding universe at an accelerating rate must have some hidden energy that we cannot see, because when scientists calculated approximately an estimate of the matter in the universe, it cannot account for the rate of accelerating expansion that is happening. So they theorized dark energy and dark matter. And they say that this dark energy that you cannot see is actually the most ubiquitous form of energy in the universe. Okay? Why am I telling you all of this? Next. Because I like astronomy and cosmology. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the noble Qur'an, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسماء بنيناها بأيد وإنا لموسعون. And the heaven we constructed it with power, in other words with strength and power, and we are expanding it. Something that was revealed 14 centuries ago. A universe as vast as what we are talking about, billions of light years away, and expanding at an accelerating rate, something completely unintuitive, something a genius like Albert Einstein even considered completely ludicrous, was revealed 14 centuries ago in the Quran to our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and the Muslims have been reciting this verse for 14 centuries. وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. Allahu Akbar. So who taught Prophet Muhammad ﷺ an expanding universe? This is if some Joe Schmo comes and tells you, oh well, it's intuitive, the universe is expanding. Muhammad must have known about it. A'udhu billah. Albert Einstein, considered it strange and even fudged his own equations to prove otherwise. Right? It's not intuitive at all. But this is what is happening. And this is what the Quran has told us. So now you ask, why didn't they know that then? Well, who could have theorized an expanding universe then? So how did they understand it then? You look at the tafsir of some of the scholars, they understood it to be the general vastness of the universe that we were just talking about. They didn't have numbers, they didn't have billions of light years or anything, but it's clearly something so vast, so huge, right? And this is possibly what is meant by we are expanding it. But no one would have ever thought that the expansion is happening as we speak. They thought of it as something that has been expanded. Period. But that the expansion is a current and ongoing process. No one could theorize that until modern science. Right? So this is what I meant by lexical ambiguity. You see, is that clearer now? So that's why, scholars or people would have understood it then in a certain way. In this situation, I claim وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ actually has explicit meaning. When you say tawsi', expanding, it makes sense. It's an explicit meaning. But the dimensions of that explicit meaning are not clear until modern science showed us and proved that the universe is indeed expanding. How much time do I have? 10 minutes and then we take a break, right? Okay. I hope I can get through half of the presentation. Next. Okay. Let's stay with the heaven, with the universe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took an oath in the Quran, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath by whatever He wills in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْحُبُكِ إِنَّكُمْ لَفِي قَوْلٍ مُخْتَلِفٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swore by as-sama' ذات الحبك. What is ذات الحبك? I challenge you to go and ask an Arabic speaker in the university or anywhere in the Arab world, what is ذات الحبك? And I almost guarantee you, 9 out of 10 will tell you, I have no idea. But you're an Arabic speaker. He doesn't know. Again, a testament to the eloquence of the Quran and a testament to our ignorance of our own language, unfortunately. Okay? That al-hubuk. So what is habk? That means the one which is characterized by hubuk. What is hubuk? This is what some of the scholars of tafsir said. Number one, a perfect construction. When you say something is mahbuk, it's perfectly done or constructed or made. Okay? There's a perfection in its creation or its invention. Okay? Another explanation that was given is a weaving. Habk actually as a verb means to weave. Okay? So it's a weaving. Alright? And some scholars, when talking about the weaving, actually gave the example of water ripples. Okay, ripples of water or waves in the sand. Okay, this is, again, habk has several meanings, and in Arabic, one word may mean many things, usually similar, sometimes not so related. It depends. Okay. So a weaving, a perfect construction,
an example of water ripples or waves in the sand? Go to the next slide. And then I'll come back to cosmic web. Next slide. Yeah. No, go back. Yes. What do you think this is? Huh? Neurons. Yes. It looks like neurons. Exactly. It looks like, some kind of a neural structure. Any other guesses? Huh? Water? Looks like water? I guess if there's some kind of like a fluorescent light and you see the waves, yeah? What else? Any other guesses? Sand? I don't see sand. What? Cells. Okay, so neurons, cells, okay, it's about the same. Okay, next picture. The picture after that, yeah. So again, right? Looking like neurons, like, cells in the body, subhanAllah. You know what this is? Can you go back, sister, to the first picture? No, the picture. Yeah, stay here. This is amazing. This is the result that a supercomputer spit out after being fed, I don't know, billions of data points for the universe. So when they put all of this information into the supercomputer, it produced this picture as an extremely compressed picture of the whole universe. As if the whole universe is compressed into this picture. This is what it looks like. So, what are these? They call them clusters of galaxies. Galaxy clusters, super clusters. A galaxy is large enough. Our Milky Way galaxy is large enough, right? With billions of stars. Just in one galaxy. Then if you talk about billions of galaxies, you're talking about a galaxy cluster. So these are galaxy clusters. These are billions of galaxies. And all almost tied together. Almost like a web. Like a spider web. Right? Super clusters of galaxies. The whole universe compressed into one picture. So not the solar system, not our galaxy, not the billions of galaxies around us, the whole universe compressed. And it looks like this. This is what Western and non-Muslim scholars in general actually called a cosmic web. And some even called it a cosmic skeleton. It's almost like a spider web, right? Who would have ever thought that the universe looks like a spider web? If I told you this, the universe looks like a web, you'd say, what web? What are you talking about? It's only when such information was fed into a supercomputer doing zillions of calculations in a second to produce something like this, right? What the scholars are calling cosmic web. Now go back, sister, go back one slide, please. Right? The cosmic web or the cosmic skeleton. You see how similar that is to the phrase that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used? ذَاتِ الْحُبُكِ, something which is mahbuk, a weaving example of waves, even the idea of having waves. Allahu Akbar. Who would have ever thought? Who would have ever even been able to fathom a picture like this for the universe? So when we read وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْحُبُكِ, what does that mean? Well, it's not when you look at it with your own naked eye. It's when you are able to compress the whole universe into one picture, then it looks like ذات الحبك. Subhanak ya Rabb. Again, where did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ get this? 1,400 years ago. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْحُبُكِ. Who could have thought, who could have understood until the age of supercomputers to be able to compress so much information into a picture like this? Wallahu a'lam. Again, when we say these things, we say Wallahu a'lam. It seems that this is a proper explanation for that al-hubuk. Again, it can have other meanings, maybe less scientific meanings, but this could also be one of the amazing meanings. This is the way the universe looks. A cosmic web or a cosmic skeleton. Why a cosmic skeleton? Because the skeleton holds things together. So you can see the universe is not just flying apart, everything being scattered in all different directions. No, it's held together, not causing it to fly apart completely. So this could be one of the interpretations of وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْحُبُكِ. And who knows, maybe in the future, even more amazing things come along that we didn't know about, or that we had no idea about. Whatever we are discovering, and whatever knowledge we are talking about, this is only very, very little. وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. We have not been given of knowledge, but very little. So this is just a very small drop in the ocean. There's so much more to discover. And who knows what else we may discover in the future, inshallah.